By now, I'm sure you've seen our coverage of the Canadian House of Commons, where a member of Parliament, Charlie Angus, gave an incredible speech pushing back against Donald Trump's threats and bullying of Canada. The video of Charlie Angus, a member of the House of Commons, a member of the New Democratic Party, it's been viewed over 1 million times on our YouTube and across our other digital and social media platforms, million times more. Here to talk about it is the member of the House of Commons, Charlie Angus. Welcome, Charlie.
Hey, thanks so much. Really, really glad to be on your show.
Well, look, when somebody from Canada forwarded that to me, and when I saw it right away, I said, this was something that I needed to highlight on the network. You pushed back against Donald Trump. Let me just remind everybody with the clip, and then I want you to walk us through what happened and just your overall perspective about Donald Trump's conduct towards Canada. But let's just play a short snippet of Charlie Angus's longer speech.
So yes, they are our neighbors, but we have stood up to them. We're in a different situation with Donald Trump, a convicted predator who's seriously undermining the democratic process in the United States, and he thinks he can just push us around. Exactly. He insults us. Yeah. You know, the conservatives seem to like it because he's insulting our prime minister, but he's not really insulting the prime minister. He's insulting Canadians, calling us the 51st state.
That's right, exactly.
You know, once there was a Canada that had a flag that didn't need to be waved. A flag that represented who we are. We didn't boast about it.
Charlie, walk us through that speech, what led to it, and discuss your sentiments that you conveyed.
Well, I remember on election night, we were all down at the local pub watching, and I just started to see how it was going down. And, you know, I knew that we were coming in for a very, very dark moment, because it's not about change of parties. It's about a full-on attack on the American democratic system, on the rules of law that you have, and it's going to have a huge impact. And the next morning I woke up and I was just like everybody. I was really bummed out because I'm very frightened about where we're going to go. And I realized nobody's coming to save us. We need to stand up. We need to stand up with a clear vision. We can't pussyfoot around these issues anymore. So when Donald Trump started making these outrageous attacks on Canada, just smears and slurs. I mean, we've been neighbors for forever and have been damn good neighbors with each other. I felt, no, I'm not putting up with that. And so I used my time in the House of Commons to lay out what a vision of Canadian values are. And you guys are way bigger than us, but we've held our own many, many times under enormous amounts of pressure. It's different this time with Donald Trump because this man, he's really playing joker politics. But we need to have a vision that says, no, we're not going to be intimidated. We're going to do what we have to do. And it's going to be a tough time, but we're going to push ahead if we have the backbone to stand up for a vision that's progressive and caring.
You know, he's making posts of himself on the Swiss Alps, and he's pretending that it's Canada, but showing that he's annexing or conquering Canada. You know, he's talking about Canada being the 51st state. He's calling Prime Minister Trudeau a governor. He's threatening 25% tariffs. He's making a lot of false and defamatory statements about Canada. What was interesting to me was that before your speech, I hadn't really seen a lot of powerful pushback. It seemed to me there was a little bit of, all right, let's kind of see. Your speech happened, but I'm starting to see a little bit of a change where across the political landscape in Canada, you're starting to see a little more Charlie Angus out there and others. Are you starting to see that now? Is the resolve growing, or are you not seeing that?
I'm definitely seeing it growing, and I'm hearing it from people across the political spectrum who said, thank you for standing up, and not in a belligerent way. I mean, I talk about where we come from as a nation, what we've sacrificed for democracy around the world, but we're not going to be pushed around. And I reference moments in history. We were under an enormous pressure to go into Vietnam. We knew that was a dangerous and dumb war, and we didn't go. And we opened our border to many young Americans, and our country became a much better place. The young Americans I knew, well, they were older when I knew them, that added to our democratic institutions who participated. Sometimes we have to stand up. We're 1/10 the size of the United States, but we're not going to be slapped around like this. I think there's a tradition in Canada of not wanting to be openly confrontive, which is fair. I think that's who we are. But Donald Trump's a different kind of animal. He's playing for the rage algorithms. And I don't think we should allow him that free reign. So for me, it was really simple, standing up and saying, no, we're going to have tough negotiations, fair play. But this kind of dismissive, idiotic behavior, I mean, he's a juvenile, and I invite Donald Trump, come up anytime in the winter, Donald, try and drive our roads, try and win an argument with any woman in Canada, try and take us on anything where we are very comfortable at. We're pretty tough and resilient people.
The dynamics of Canadian politics has been fascinating it's always been fascinating, but, you had the Conservative Party over the past number of years kind of being their own version. People have referred to it as Maple MAGA, being led by the conservative opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, and then seeing also at the provincial level, people like Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, Danielle Smith in Alberta, Premier of Alberta, who have kind of parroted MAGA talking points and talked up MAGA as being a good thing for Canada. But now, as Donald Trump is showing the utmost disrespect to them, it's changing the dynamic we're seeing there as well, right? With how the Conservative Party in Canada, now they look like, they're people. I thought you said these were our crew. I thought these people liked us. So what do you say to them in that dynamic?
I think that's a really important point. Traditionally, the politics in Canada have not been hot button. Traditionally, there was a time we used to call the Conservatives the Red Tories. They were progressives on many social issues. They were conservative on others. There is always a tradition in our parliament of respect. That's disintegrated under this new leader. I call him the guy who lives in Stornoway, which is a 19-room mansion paid for by the taxpayer. I remind people he's never ever had a job outside of apparently Dairy Queen. I don't normally denigrate people like that, but this man is unfit for public office. And they've imported this MAGA playbook. And it happened, I think, very much because of the pandemic and the isolation and people becoming more frightened of their neighbors. And these are things that we expect leaders to step up and bring people back together. But they're exploiting this pitchfork politics. They think they're going to ride a wave of it through disinformation, through rage and hate. But President Kennedy once said that those who try and ride the tiger end up in the tiger's belly. And we're dealing with this kind of rage disinformation that's actually, I think, is a serious threat to democracy. Our institutions weren't made to withstand this kind of disinformation because we expect that the people who are elected will be putting out policies and ideas and debates that are respectful. Instead, we get disinformation and rage. So a lot of my speeches in the House lately have been focused on the Conservative leader and the danger of importing that kind of hate politics into Canada because it will have a dangerous impact on our democratic abilities. And the fact now that the rage beast has turned on them, well, guess what, guys? This is what was coming all along. So we need to step back and say, how do we work as a nation? How do we stand up at a time of crisis? We've done it before, but we're not going to be able to do it unless we get people acting like adults and sitting at the table and saying, put the nation first. Just put all your partisan stuff aside for a second. Put the nation first.
You talk about the importing of this rage baiting from the United States of America, where here, based on rulings by our Supreme Court, corporations can inject unlimited amounts of money into campaign. Billions of dollars go into disinformation ecosystems here. Now, talk to our viewers. We have a lot of Canadian viewers, of course. We got a lot more American viewers, but we have a lot of international viewers, all different kind of systems regarding how corporate money works its way into politics. I know Canada over the years developed a pretty robust system where you don't buy elections in Canada, and corporate money and corporate financing into political spending is different, right? In Canada, there's no like political action committees spending billions of dollars. And walk us through that because I think that's an important difference between Canada and the US where people are buying elections, billions of dollars. In Canada, that's not the way it works, does it?
We have a couple of bulwarks to protect democracy in place that are really important, and it's one of the reasons we haven't gone so far down the MAGA rabbit hole. Number one is our Supreme Court is nonpartisan, scrupulously nonpartisan. We have not allowed our judicial system to be overtaken in the way the Supreme Court in the United States has been completely turned over to the far right. You need an independent judicial system because the independent judicial system has called out our prime ministers in the past. In fact, the last Conservative government had numerous battles with the Supreme Court on laws that just weren't constitutional. So that's a really important bulwark that we still have. I would imagine it'll be attacked soon enough. The other is electoral financing. I represent a region that's bigger than the United Kingdom. I run my entire campaign for about $100,000 because there are campaign limits. Corporations cannot donate up front. So that allows a level playing field and allows people like me, a kid from a mining town, to actually run and represent people that I couldn't probably be able to do in the United States. What's concerning me, there is a lot of dark money appearing, and it's certainly on the platforms. We saw that with X. And we see it with Meta, Facebook, the amount on my political page, the amount of toxic memes, hate memes against trans people, against climate change, attacking our prime minister. Who's paying for that, and how's that money being spread? It's an enormous online campaign. That's what worries me, the inability, the unwillingness to call out that. You probably saw the crazy convoy of, the great White Lives Matter protests that occupied our capital for weeks and weeks and weeks with disinformation and crazy. How much of that was driven by offshore bot farms and Russian disinformation is a huge question, but people are tiptoeing around it because they don't want to take on the rage mob. But these are things that are threatening our democracy, added to the kind of language that Trump is bringing in on everything from vaccinations to migrants. It will put a lot of stress on our nation, and we need to stand up and say, no, you're not going to go down that road, but we have to protect the institutions that we have.
Yeah, those trucker convoys also amplified by bot farms and right-wing American politicians who wanted to shut down bridges, shut down the commerce between Canada and the United States to harm both economies, and in the chaos prop up kind of other right-wing figures by hurting people. I have two more questions for you. One is kind of an interesting and somewhat self-serving one. The other is a broader message that I'd love for you to share with people in Canada, people in the United States in general. I'll start with the self-serving one, never end on a self-serving one. You and I, before the show, you were talking about MeidasTouch's reach in Canada, and it surprised you a bit about the MeidasTouch support in Canadian pubs and around even your district. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because it's been a major priority of us to build a pro-democracy coalition internationally.
Well, certainly, doing you guys a shout out, when you posted my speech, the amount of comments I started to get, they were coming from really surprising quarters to me, certainly students, but then ordinary working class people. A guy stopped me on the street today, a worker, and gave me the fist bump and said, stand up, be proud, defend our country. That's because of the reach of what's happening. But I think the issue of defending democracy is no longer within our individual borders. That's what we've learned from the Steve Bannon playbook. They have no intention on the far right of focusing on an election here or there. They're using strategies globally to undermine democratic rights. We're in a time of crisis. We're in a time when we need to learn from each other and work together. So having a platform like yours, getting information out to people, and information that's not disinformation, but conversation, is a really, really important thing at this time.
So final closing message from you to the people of Canada. Now this video has been viewed millions of times. I'm sure you're going to keep on fighting using your voice. But what's your general message to others in Canada, whether it's others in the NDP, Liberal Party, Conservatives, but just the people of Canada? What do you say to them right now?
I think we need to remember who we are at this time. At a time of such great uncertainty, people don't seem to know what's up and what's down. It's like, wait a minute, remember what our grandparents went through. I think of my late father-in-law, 17 years old, went on the Navy convoys to get supplies to Murmansk and then ended up in the battle at Japan. My uncles who left at 17, 16, they worked in the mines. My aunt and mother and sisters and that who worked on the polio wards when they were dealing before vaccines. These were tough people. They gave us our values. We have to be tough now. And we have to be tough, especially when you got hair the color of mine, for the young generation. They're suffering a lot of stress right now. They should be looking to us to stand up to them. So when a convicted predator like Donald Trump thinks he's going to slap us around, I don't think so. We got to have backbone. Nobody else is going to come and save us. This is my message for my friends in the United States. We got to start rebuilding at the grassroots. We got to start rebuilding our communities. We got to start rebuilding our networks. We got to make ourselves resilient to hate and resilient to grifters.
Charlie Angus, we're going to have to absolutely have you back here on the network. There is always an open invite here. Please let us know your next
Anytime.
floor speech. We'd love to have you back. And thank you for giving us this lesson generally, this cross-border lesson, as it's so critical, to your point, that we have conversations with accurate data and information and build pro-democracy alliances internationally. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million subscribers and have a wonderful day.
Real quick, Meta just changed their algorithm to suppress political content. Please follow our Instagram @MeidasTouch right now as we head towards 400,000 followers so you don't miss a beat.